Opposed, carried. Approval of signatures of the CD stuff. Still pretty much the same, right?
So move.
Brian, or Dan, right?
Yeah, there's a slight change there, an update. So it's marginally higher this month. Some interest came through on, let's see, where is it at? Probably that First State Bank. CD,
Oh, and you just rolled it
Which
and,
was just renewed, yep. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, after you guys take care of this piece.
We need a motion to approve that.
Of these, so moved.
Oh, Brian did it, right?
Did you do this one?
No, he did the bills.
So he just did
He
the,
just did this one.
Oh, that Brian?
This Brian.
Okay, we got two Brian's here.
Or is one right Brian or left Brian?
Who's the left wing and who's the right? Motion by Brian Loud,
I'll second.
seconded by Boone. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. Balance sheet.
okay, this is a little bit smaller this month than it typically is, but it's the same information. Just fit it on a sheet that fit in your packet a little bit better. Overall, obviously, we spent $736,283.66 more than we brought in this month, but that is normal this time of the year. And it will continue to be normal until you start seeing receipts for property taxes in December, January, February, etc. So you see a bottom line there of now of $8.001 million on the bottom. Just because, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit later on, the 9 meetings that you held with township officers, we had talked about during the course of those, and we'll come back to this, of $50,000 a month in the red. Well, this is a fine example of, that's an 18-month average. This is going to progressively get worse unless it's addressed. So this last month, and this is highlighted for you, and well, not highlighted for you, but you can see it if you just look at the road department and the highway tax department. Those are the two that have revenue, and those are the two that presently have expenses. You have $71,663.51 in revenue in those two lines, and you have $137,712.01 in expenses. So that is a net loss of $66,048.50 over the course of the prior 30 days. So, you know, when we talked about that during the course of those meetings, averaging $50,000 a month, it is, and take a look outside. There wasn't any overtime, there wasn't any this, there wasn't any of that. This is a problem that will get progressively worse until we figure out what our 4 or 6 or 9 steps are to deal with it. So that's the best piece of information on this sheet for you here today, is knowing that you can't just look the other way and it's gonna somehow fix itself. So, do you have any questions
Let's do 5, appointment of Wells County Superintendent of Schools. Is that a yearly thing, Dan? or
You presently don't have one, and,
Warren resign? That was a
and,
joke.
And so, obviously, we all kinda know how we got here. I did wear that hat, and due to the state's attorney's view of some archaic, antiquated, bygone era in North Dakota, she saw to it that I could not hold that position and bring that land annexation piece forth, so I resigned from that position. Warren Strand was appointed to that position to get that thing at least heard at the state level, which it never did, because the clock was run out. And I'm not happy about that. Doesn't make any difference. It's water under the bridge. Can't do anything about it now. So I informed the landowners of that, but at this particular time, it would be my recommendation that you reappoint me to that particular position so that somebody is doing the work.
Okay.
And basically, all that involves these days is filing documents.
Well, and I was, not to interrupt, but for the sake of the paper, the people out here, and Brian, who's new on the commission, briefly explain nowadays, what does the superintendent of schools do?
Largely, it's filing paperwork from schools in your county, of which there are 2. We have other districts that exist in Wells County, but it's an Eddy County school, it's a Benson County school, etc. So Thousand and Bowden and Harvey are the only 2 active school districts in the county, so they send me their election results, they send me their budgets, etc. That's largely what it is. It's filing, it's keeping things in place. And believe it or not, there's a provision in state law that suggests that if a school district doesn't have a superintendent, that the county superintendent of schools would assume that role. Well, that technically wouldn't even be legal, except in my case, I am licensed to do that work. I did do that. I did go back to Harvey Public Schools for 1 year. You know this board, you know this anyway. So that's what a county superintendent of schools largely does.
And
is
it's
just file papers.
very limited as far as how many hours a year, about,
A few,
very few.
yeah.
And historically, there's a superintendent of schools, this is back in the one-room schoolhouse days when they didn't have a superintendent, so the superintendent of schools went out and visited all these different, or even the last one they would have done that with, would have they done that with the elementary school in Hertzfield? Maybe, way back, maybe
Yeah,
as
that was
superintendent. And it was to
first.
oversee, to make sure that it was running properly. Well, those days are over and
Okay.
gone and done with.
So this is an interesting deal, and it might help to understand exactly what Stan's point here is. Pony Gulch has a little deal on the Wells County Fairgrounds there. They've got their old school. Somebody came in, they want to do a record search. Okay, so I go in the back and pull open the file drawer, and I just grabbed your 1927. Pony Gulch, you know, is a rural township south of Harvey. How many schools do you think were in Pony Gulch Township alone in 1927?
What do you think?
Not 1, not 2, not 3. There were 4 schools in that 6 by 6 mile area
Really?
in 1927. And every one of them had, give or take, about 20 kids in there.
The old
I mean-
one-room schoolhouses.
There probably isn't one child living, school-age child living in Pony Gulch Township today. There were 4 schools there in 1927.
I know, that's something.
So that's, yeah, from a bygone era, that position probably did a lot.
That was a big job then. You get out, go out and visit them. You know, how many were in this, in the whole county at that time?
Yeah, and if you think
Here we
there
go.
were 4 in Pony Gulch, there were probably 100 and some.
And I'm old enough to go to White School, county school, when I was in the 1st grade, and Eddie Thorson, remember her name yet, she'd come down.
$1,000 annually of federal government, then you have to get audited annually. So this is what you get, obviously, to you know, I suppose make the public feel better, about, the county. There is nothing wrong here. The only thing they want is they want more demonstrated on the revenue side of things. If you go to page 50, which is the, your areas that you need to improve, it talks specifically about wanting more transparency in revenue. A couple of years ago, obviously it was you need to do a better job of showing both your expenditures and your revenue. And the state has templates that you can utilize for this, and I did utilize those for the expenditure part of things. I did not find their revenue side of things to be nearly as user-friendly and very difficult to use. The revenue or the expenditure side, very easy to use, and so I've done that. So, and we talked about that. It's not that we don't have this information. You've no doubt seen the budget sheets that are handed out to all of the different offices. There's one for the commission as well. So they exist. The issue that I have with revenue, and we get revenue from a number of different places, and you've learned a lot about that over the last several months. Everything from state aid to due to legislative action to your taxes, et cetera. The only revenue that's a sure thing in my book is the revenue that's generated by levying taxes. And that's only a sure thing if people actually pay their taxes, which is always a handful of people that don't, and you always end up short. I mean, you'll eventually get those dollars, but it might be a year late, it might be 2 years late, it might be 3 years late, it might be after a tax sale. So you'll get them, school districts will get them, ambulance districts will get them, fire districts will get them. So eventually you'll get that money, but it might be 3 or 4 years late. So I'm not real comfortable saying that, hey, we're gonna get $519,000 from the state government and state aid. I don't know that. Depends on their tax revenues. So, yeah, I suppose you can, you know, and that's really what I do, is I have a separate sheet where I look at the last 12 months, add those up, average it, and that's what I think we'll get. I don't know that.
Well, it's an estimate.
So that is, that is our audit, and it does tell me that Wells County has to do a better job of being able to show its revenue.
Well, they have to come up with something, otherwise they wouldn't justify the means of auditing.
And it did cost $16,000 for them to be here for a day and a half.
Really?
So,
Oh, yeah, audits are not cheap. Cheap
But,
compared to engineering firms, that's another story.
Well, we don't start that.
No, I'm keeping that for later.
and they do, I mean, when they come in here, they expect you, they'll send you a list of things, these are the things that we want. And they'll just, you tell them your first check and your last check, and then they have a deal that randomly selects which invoices they're gonna pull. And I have to provide them information of what we pay to PERS and all of our salary and benefits and things of that nature, so they make sure that everything adds up. And there is no issue there. Everything does add up in Wells County, and I'm proud of that, and really proud of the gals in the treasurer's office and my deputy for making sure that those things are very good. But yeah, we've got to do a better job of being able to show revenue, so.
And did they give you any indication at all, you know, how auditors are, and I'm assuming this auditing firm does a lot of counties, do most of them use the state template for revenue? And that's why they just prefer that then,
Yeah.
probably. So it's a kind of a gray area opinionated thing.
So, yeah, we had that conversation when they were here, and they would ask me things like, well, how do you know? It's yes, and I've been doing budgets for a long time for, you know, school district and so on, and never easy to anticipate what you're gonna get, but.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the audit. Motion by Brian,
Second.
second by Doc. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
On the road the other day, I started out on this mile, it was no snow removal. I got 2 miles down the road, it was a minimum maintenance road. But anyway, if you look at, Dan gave us a list of things that came out of
Right,
it.
yep.
There was a high percentage of it that is stated that we should get more money from the state. So, with that said, is that even possible?
Well, but that's where 6 county meeting now and legislative session is coming up, that we need to instill, that's what our associations of county
Right.
lobbyist people do, and we gotta be on board of increasing funding there, whether it's the prairie dog bill, something new, increased money in the bridge fund. To me, the scariest thing about finances in Wells County going forward is spending money on bridges or culverts. I mean, Brent just comes up the other day, wow, that's gonna be $80,000 culvert. Holy crap, that wasn't in the budget.
One culvert.
And
Yeah,
what
one
roads
culvert
are gonna be
over.
popping up more than you think too.
You know, that's just an unforeseen thing that
East side of the road.
you don't know about.
Well, you know, and that's a great idea, going to the state, and I'm sure all 6 counties in our 6 county meeting are gonna agree with that. But if you're gonna wait for the state, how long can you hold your breath?
Oh,
Right. But that's one option that
I
needs
just
to be
noticed there was a
pursued.
lot of,
Yes.
you know, that was said a lot.
There's,
Well, it's always easy to want somebody else to pay
Oh,
for
yeah,
your stuff,
exactly,
you know?
exactly. I mean,
This is the Chasely Highway,
it-
that's where the
The
culvert.
thing of it is, that what's really funny is,
Yeah, and.
you look at
Zerbo's
sales
got a big
tax,
tree row
okay?
right up there.
sales tax is a real zoo. in
Mark
Martinsville.
Zerbo used to own that.
Because there's so many different things that you can and can't do sales tax with.
Oh, yeah.
Each county can add along with whatever. Okay, so if that's the case, if they got to do that, why can't we do that with fuel tax? I mean, you follow what I'm saying? That's
Well,
a statewide thing, or federal,
I
or
think it's
whatever.
just because it's hard to implement.
Right.
I mean, it would be at your spot of purchase and then that would be.
But you know, on the other hand, you guys, this 1 point whatever that we're gonna do County 5 with, that is money that we're getting from state that we didn't for a while.
Right.
So we get a lot of money from the state, or this bridge, that's gonna get built eventually
Yeah.
southwest of Harvey, so
Mhm.
the state,
So that's why I'm saying I think it's gotta be a combination of things that we have to do.
Or-
Like the $100 and what else?
Doc and I were the only two on, well, Boone was maybe. You know what the social service board budget was every year when the county was in charge of it? Oh my gosh. The state taking that over was a huge benefit for the
Oh.
state, or for the county.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'd be in a lot more dire straits.
well, there's social service situations that if you get 4 or 5 families that move into a county, you gotta adjust the mill levy practically.
Right.
It just,
Right.
so the state does give us,
Dan, what'd you gather on that feedback we got?
Well, you know, and it's wonderful to say, you know, hey, lobby the legislature, but they've never met a tax that they wanted to deal with. But what fortune we do have in Wells County is that we have 2 legislators out of 150 living in our county.
right?
Okay? You can say what you want about Fargo and Bismarck having all this growth, but that's a pretty dang good percentage for Wells County. And I know the other gentleman from.
We got
Lake
3,
Wolford,
because John Nelson's in our camp
he will
too.
go to bat because Pierce
Yeah.
County is no different than Wells County in this circumstance.
Yep.
I think that process has to start, and I'm willing to do my part, but you gotta call these guys too, you gotta, hey, and I don't care what it is, and taxes are never fun to talk about, I don't care what political persuasion you are, but in North Dakota, they're seemingly more difficult than most places. And we're gonna get into the budget, and we'll probably start getting into this. This is liable to be what will be construed by many of the constituents as a painful process in Wells County. But the fact of the matter is that they've gotten by for so little, for so long. That's the only thing that will make it painful. I'm a school guy, you guys all know that. I'm reading West Fargo's preliminary budget yesterday, and they're patting themselves on the back because their mill rate's gonna stay the same. Actually, it's gonna go down by .09. And their business manager is a very smart man, said, boy, in this climate, it's not easy to go to your constituency and raise their mill rates. He didn't mention that their valuations have gone up 12%.
I was gonna say, how about the other end of that
It
equation?
went up 12%, and so they're gonna decline their mill rate by 0.09. This was, you have to go out to the fourth decimal point, 10,000th of a reduction in their mill rate, but they're actually going to get a 7% increase in money.
Right.
And you're lecturing me on, and their mill rate, by the way, is 129 and change.
Wow.
The one in Harvey
And
is
they probably had
71.
150 new home construction projects that went on the docket.
Oh, yeah,
That
okay.
West Fargo
Okay.
didn't have. Look at West
So-
Fargo, how it's grown, so.
So Wells County, when your max in your general fund can be 60 and we're sitting at 47, you don't have to feel bad about this, okay? Even though the constituency is gonna go, oh my God. Hey, our taxes are so damn low here, it's almost unfair. And we have put ourselves in this position by doing that. And now we have to raise them for multiple reasons, including capital projects, because you just sat here and talk about a construction project that'll take place in 2026. We don't have any grant match to deal with the first 20% that you're gonna have to pay for that bridge. So that has to be a capital projects piece. We know, you can go back to that budget sheet that I showed you, we're $700 and some odd thousand in the hole in our road department.
Then it got bigger today. We got no gravel and we need an $80,000 culvert and.
Matlock ain't sent a bill for 2 years.
And Matlock hasn't sent us a bill for 2 years. Yeah.
And Foster County wants $95,000 from
Well,
it.
that's not out of the road department.
But, well, it's
Who wants
on the county.
95,000?
Don't worry about
Social
it.
service.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
pocket change.
So,
Oh, I know, it's a,
we have some needs
Vicious
here, and it's time to address those needs. At no point in any of those 9 meetings, and granted, this did not include the city of Harvey, the city of Fresno, the yada, yada, yada. At no point at the end of it did anybody say that we shouldn't raise taxes.
Right,
Nobody said that.
right.
right. If it wasn't for the option of charging them, they suggested raising the general mill.
Right.
So, yes, our legislators need to be lobbied. Yes, we need to raise taxes. And yes, you may have to require some nominal fee from the townships.
I definitely think we have.
We do. I
What does
agree,
it
Cam.
take? Some of them townships in Pierce County went from 18 to 36 mills. What does it take to do that?
They gotta vote.
They gotta vote, the 7 people in the township have to vote.
To raise their mills?
I'm being sarcastic.
But-
I know that,
but
but
the
he
people
said
within
this
the
happened.
township.
But-
When they weren't getting enough money to pay this
It's
lady,
easy to do.
The
they
legislature,
said to do that. They had
what's
to
the
do that.
easiest thing to do? The legislature could take that cap off.
That'd be
And
the
change
biggest.
the 18 to 22, or 23,
Six,
or
or
whatever.
Yeah.
But like
Without
anything
making a
else,
vote.
like anything else, what would they prefer you do? Handle it yourself.
Do the county
Okay.
do it.
You know, but handling themselves, they shouldn't have put that restriction on there.
That's right.
It's really contradictory as to what they're doing. Let local control
You wait,
decide, but you can only raise it to 18.
Every year you get your property tax statement, okay? I don't know how closely you read it, but the required portions on there that we do are about mill rates and valuations and things like that. And then the legislature makes you put on there, this is what the legislature's done for you.
Yeah.
Despite what your county and city and your school district are trying to screw you out of, this is what we did for you. And that's literally the language that's on the statement, and it's
On the top of the
required to be
statement.
on there.
Yeah.
So don't expect them to do anything for you,
Really good,
but
you
you
guys
better
take
let
care
them
of
know.
this.
Now Dan's worked up, so that's 3 of us
No,
now.
but it's fine. I just,
Just relax.
Brian hasn't got worked up yet today.
Well-
Old Brian.
I heard a story.
No, we don't have time for
This
stories.
doesn't take very long. This guy lives in Kidder County. There's a lot of big, about 4 big guys in there. They're on the township board, they won't raise the taxes, and they won't fix roads. And they only have enough money to pay for paid blading, and that's all they got. They got no money for gravel or nothing. and none of them will do anything, they're just gonna let the roads go, cause they, you know.
And you know what, that's their option.
Right, but I'm just saying, I mean, that's the difference that some places have,
I know.
you know? And these roads are horrible,
And we could run into the same thing here,
you know?
So, and, okay,
We're all
I'm gonna
organized.
talk about something that will be really controversial now.
Okay, oh boy.
All right,
Let it
and,
rip.
and one of you brought it up, I can't remember who brought it up, but somebody brought it up. And that would be the hours that the road department works. Okay? We all want a 9 to 5 job. Okay, some of us don't have that luxury. So this time of the year, if it's raining, what's the point of doing a 10-hour day if you can't do your job?
Right, I agree. There's gotta be some flexibility in
My
there.
hours in, man.
Well, and I'm just saying, and that would take this group here being
Why can't we
willing to,
suggest this?
willing to, you know, maybe step on a toe and say, you know what? It rained Thursday and Friday. You gotta get the last of your 40 in on Saturday, I'm sorry.
I'd like to know how many hours this spring alone they spent in the shop.
I don't know, they'll
Last
give you
winter.
the argument.
It rained for a
well,
month.
We serviced the machines, we did that, but I wanna know what they did all winter.
Yeah.
That too.
And you
So-
gotta employ them, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm talking, and I told you it'd be controversial before we started, but, you know, there's gotta be a little bit of, you have to come forward a little bit too.
Or a little bit of give, both directions.
So, just a thought, and, I mean, I think if in those 9 meetings, if they would have felt like there was some of that give and take, that too would have been acceptable too, right? I do believe that they will be aggravated if they have to pay, but I think them taking a little bit of ownership isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I want this to be virtually paperless in terms of what the township has to do. If they've got 43 miles and it's $100 a mile, it's $4,300. No, hey.
Yeah, no,
Now
we're
you
not
get
gonna-
3 rounds in the summer.
No, no.
Right.
Okay.
We've all agreed that we're
Yes.
not gonna do
Keep
any
it
of that.
simple.
Keep it simple, right?
There you go.
I'm in the camp, I would charge them $200, and that's way below average as far as statewide. I mean, there's some 400s, 200, yeah,
What
it's
are
a
we
little
gonna
steep.
do with the ones that absolutely can't pay?
That's their problem.
The problem is then they have to get together and try and raise their mill.
Yeah,
Right.
which they
The
got that
two
option,
people,
I
the
guess.
two people that told us specifically that, you know, we just can't afford this, I call BS on that because they have avenues to do so. Now, I'm not gonna mention which townships those were, but
It'll
I just
come up
don't, I
someday.
don't believe that. And is it a hardship for some? Yeah, and I feel for that southern part of the county where evaluations are really pretty low, and they would have trouble doing it, but we have a problem here too. And 200 is not, you know. Deficit-wise, we're 500 per mile in the hole per year, if you figure out the math.
So we're having them help us, not the total picture.
We're helping, they're helping 40%. We've got to come up with the other 60. That's just my suggestion.
So we've got work to do here yet, but you don't have a whole. You've got time to think about this, but how it factors into your budget and what you decide to do in your budget will have probably a greater sway on what you're ultimately going to need from your township. So let's start talking about budget, because everybody that's sitting here knows that the largest expense that we have in the county on a normal, continual basis is the salary and benefits of the people that we employ. And Dennis happened to be at the last department's meeting where I put it out there, and we talked about a handful of different things, but I asked them what they were thinking about. And obviously they came up with some extreme numbers, 9%, 10%, that's not even realistic.
Is it increase, you mean?
Yes.
10%?
Yeah. I don't remember what it actually, what all was thrown out there, but the truth of the matter is, there were also 4s and 5s brought out there. I looked at the inflation rate right now, and it's 2.97. And the federal government has a rule, they want to see growth in the economy, and it's always been a desire that you have 2% inflation. Having no inflation is not a positive thing. Anybody that knows anything about economics
Then you're
knows
in a
that's
recession.
not a good thing. So 2% is a hope, and it's at 2.97. It's pretty damn good. Okay, so this carrying on about inflation and stuff, yeah, we had inflation that was approaching double figures. It did not reach double figures, but it was it was 9-something, 8-something a few years ago. Yeah, that's painful, okay? Not as painful as 1982 was, not as painful as 1981 was, not as, how people forget, because I was alive then, and I'm not the oldest one in this room.
So rub it in, go ahead.
So,
Down,
that
down.
being said, and I also remember going to a bank for loans that were in double figures too, by the way.
Yeah.
That's credit card interest today,
Yep.
and yet people think the sky is falling. It is not. However, that is where you really need to start here. The budget sheets that I've got back, nobody's asking for anything below.
Below what?
Salary,
Below last year.
salary
Yeah.
piece, okay, all the other things, the office equipment, et cetera. Brent might be the exception to that, but he got turned down. So, what is your threshold of pain? And not knowing what this is gonna cost you. What is realistic?
You want a percentage of salary increase is what he's basically asking. What do you think?
Okay, so I think, knowing what you know about inflation, 2.97, absolute bargain basement minimum is what?
3%.
3%, that's what I was gonna say.
Three.
earlier.
You gotta keep up with
3%.
And that's
inflation.
just to tread water. Okay, so what would you be willing to do?
What's been the average kinda, is it?
It hasn't been.
Changed year to year or not?
Last year it was drastically higher because inflation was higher.
They
There
have-
was a
What was it
year,
last year?
They have received unprecedented salary increases the last couple of years. They
Yeah.
have been, I believe last year was 4 and the year prior was 6.
there was
Okay,
a 6
that's
one year.
It was unprecedented. Okay, you can go back and you can look at this, and I'm not gonna go dig all that stuff up, it's not necessary. But having increases in the past that might have been 2%.
I was
that
gonna
might
say,
have
one of
been
the
one.
first years out, inflation was 0, it was like a 2% increase, wasn't it not? It wasn't very much.
And then one of the big ones was some COVID money was.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yep.
some COVID
Yeah.
money got dealt out, and that really made it feel good.
And
Yeah, I
and
think
so,
everybody squealed about that, giving the employees the extra money.
Who's everybody?
Well, there's some people that squeal,
I never heard one complaint on
that we give them that extra money.
that. Really?
Well, the workers enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about
Yeah, I
the
know.
public.
So,
You're talking to Rob.
give me an order, and here's a piece that I'm going to hand you out, because you also have to be responsive to benefits, correct? And the biggest of that is health insurance, and then, of course, you've got to deal, I think I've got
Did we get the magic number as far as what's gonna increase for next year yet, or?
Yes.
Really?
I told you that inflation was what?
2.9.
2.97?
Yeah.
What a coincidence. Our insurance, they're proposing 2.97%.
That's good, because it's usually way higher than inflation, way
Correct.
higher.
And so this is what is being proposed. This is not finalized, so don't run off to your banker and tell them this is what it's gonna be. But, all right, right now, a single plan costs $948.76 a month. They're proposing to take it to $976.94, which is a 2.97% increase in the cost. There are currently 21 employees in Wells County that utilize a single insurance policy. SPD is single plus dependent, currently $1669.76, proposing going to $1719.35, which is a 2.97% increase. We have 5 employees that currently use that. And then if you have anything else, if you have a family or a single plus a spouse, that's automatically family, even though they categorize it differently. I put them together. Family plan costs $2466.46, of which Wells County pays in excess of 92% of. They are proposing moving that to $2539.71, which is also 2.97%. There are 15 employees that take that policy. The other thing, and then I should note that we'll be adding 2 to our insurance on 9/1 of '24. That would include our state's attorney and our new employee on the road department. And then we have 2 employees, yours truly included, that does not currently take health insurance from the county. One of the conversations, and Dennis, I'm gonna ask you to speak towards this because you were in the room. I don't want this all to be because Dan Stutling told you so. I threw this out there, that one of the conversations we've had several times at budget time, and Brian, you would not have been a part of this conversation. Stan has probably been the most outspoken about it, is that you've got multiple different kinds of employees. You've got employees who take a single policy or no insurance. You have those that have a child or children on there, have a single plus dependent, and you have a family plan. So you could conceivably have 4 different employees, all equally talented, all paid exactly the same wage. One of them is very expensive, the other one a little bit less expensive, one that's not so expensive, and one that's relatively cheap. Okay? Same worker, okay? So maybe it is time to begin a discussion about what are the values of the benefits. The only benefits where all employees are not treated equally or equitable is in health insurance and dental insurance. Those 2 areas, if you have a family or whatever the case is, you obviously cost significantly more. You can't fix this in a year. You can't fix this in 2 years. It takes years to transition to something like this. So Dennis, I'm gonna ask you to,
Dan's exactly right, and that was a topic of conversation, and, you know, believe it or not, I was kinda surprised, a lot of them said it'd just be fair, every employee just got a single policy, and it would, when you think about it.
Right.
You know, it's a heck of a benefit to get a family plan. So, I gathered that there was quite a few people who would have been happy to have a single plan and more salary, right?
yep,
And you're exactly right, it's probably something we need to be looking at.
but as I look at this sheet, and that's why I gave this to you, 21 would be, well, technically 23 if you count the 2 that don't take. 23 people would be thrilled with that solution. Who would not be thrilled with that solution?
The other 20.
The other 20.
The other 20.
So literally, when I look at this sheet, it looks like 21 versus 20.
Be easier if it was
the
30 to 10.
The 5 might bend a little bit because they're not taking a family plan, they're taking a single plus dependent. But to me, that's split right down the middle. Now, you wouldn't hurt these 15 or 20, but it would come at the expense of helping whom? The 21 up
The
here.
other 21.
And so this becomes very controversial, and I told Stan on the phone, I said, I'll bring this up, but I'm not going to be your lightning rod for your ideas.
You know, Dan wants us to go to a single policy, and we're just gonna do it. We're not gonna say that.
So, yeah, you want, hey, talk to Stuehling about this. It's a good idea. No,
So how many of the 15 are gonna say, well, we'd have known that, we might not have hired on if we couldn't.
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying,
I
that's the
know.
argument.
I'm in the camp.
absolutely
too.
right, and I've worked in public life for a lot of years before I came to the county. And I never in my wildest dreams would I've ever believed that the wage that you take home would be one of the most contentious things, especially in public life. When you're working in private life and Mr. Manager wants to give somebody a raise and not everybody else, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
In public life, you can't do that.
No.
Okay, you cannot do that. So this is not easy, but this becomes, there is no path forward to significantly change anybody's take-home pay here without addressing benefits. It's not possible.
It's a reality.
Well, there's a lot of firms.
That are taking a single as opposed to a family. Okay, so to get the cost of these employees to be equivalent, yeah, it's gonna cost you money. Now, are we in agreement that we at least wanna look at something like
Yes.
this?
yeah.
Okay, all right,
Try to keep it simple.
yep, we'll
It's
try to do that.
possible.
Let's try to.
Okay,
Simple.
so we'll create something there. The other circumstance that we have to talk about is our mill rate. And what, there's gonna be an element of sticker shock associated with this, because we, A, gotta get a department that's gonna operate in the black. Okay? You've gotta have some kind of money for a grant match. You voted today to take 46% of your CDs, pull them out, and pay for a project. Okay, now, I have every reason to believe we will get prairie dog funds again next year. And the moment we get them, they should go right back into CDs
Right.
and earn some interest.
And then pay for a bridge.
Well, okay, so what are we talking about here? How are we going to do the county's end of this deficit that we have in the road department, knowing that you are 13 mills away from your max, okay? And then at the same time, I don't wanna go to 60 mills, because
No.
it leaves you no place to go.
Right.
No.
Okay, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we should be at 54. Our valuation was 47,000, 61,417 in 2024. It's going up to 47,464, $349. That's a $402,000 change. Okay? Now, you might say, well, that's pretty significant, and that kinda is significant, but you know what? That's 0.8%. That's not a big deal. Okay? So, a mill is gonna generate $47,464.35. Okay, that's more than it was a few years ago, which was 45 grand. All right, I put in your packet Garrison Diversion's budget request there. They're gonna request a mill. That's what they're gonna get from us. State Medical Center's gonna request a mill. That's what they're gonna get from us. All right, so you have a pretty good idea when I give you that information, what 54 mills would generate, or what 58 mills would generate, or what 47 mills generates. there's no way to sugarcoat this. Taxes in Wells County, you got two choices as you sit here. You can raise them, or you can do nothing, and you'll be out of money here in a couple of years.
No, it's.
So,
you gotta
As far as
face-
charging the townships, when's the earliest we can do that?
2025. And you have to have a plan in place of what you're gonna do. So,
Well, I
A, you
realize
can tell them, but you're not collecting that, I don't think, until 2025, because they have to have the capacity, and they're gonna get funds too between now and then. The average township, don't forget this, has $80,000 in their bank account,
No,
okay? And that does, the western townships of the world, they got $1,000 left, or have borrowed money, they're the exception to the rule. There's a township that has $190-some thousand in their checkbook. All right? They're not as broke as they'd like you to believe. But, and the county's not broke. And I don't want anybody to get that impression either, but we're on the fast track to
Going broke.
breaking the county.
So,
So you need to address this before you are broke.
see, and you all realize that if we would charge, that's $40, right?
Yep.
Be a loan, pretty soon, Doc.
interest,
If we would charge townships $200 a mile, that would collect, how many thousand? Do the math.
200,000, I thought we said.
250,000?
Something like that,
Okay.
I thought we came up with.
Is it an average
All
of
things-
40 miles? per
All
township?
things being
Well,
equal,
no, we just took the total miles.
if all things are equal and there's no other budget constraints, we could lower the general fund by 4 mils, correct? You realize that, how that works? That we're really not raising taxes by charging the townships. We're shifting the tax base from the townships and lowering the general.
So I think
I'm
we're
not
in
saying
agreement
we
here
do
that Wells County's gotta be part of the solution here. So we're gonna have to have a bigger ask here. The other part of this is capital projects. Okay, right now, the only element that has requested money from there, we always taxed under what was called jail and transportation. And we significantly reduced that. It's down to a fraction of a mil right now, because they got 400 and some odd $1,000 in there. I'm just looking at the budget that was handed to me this morning. He wants $70,000 in there. He got 20 last year because they have 400 and some $1,000 in there. I'm not in the camp that we would continue to do that. That's a choice that you will make when you ultimately look at all these sheets. Obviously, I collected one this morning, so I'm not prepared to hand these things out to you. And this is the second to last one that I need back. I don't have one back from the road department either. And I'm gonna guess I'm gonna get told, well, you just fill it out. Because I'm sure the idea of filling that out wouldn't be done with any more thought than this was, which is just a bunch of writing on paper.
Can we draw out of that jail account? We cannot take nothing out of it?
No,
No, but we can watch what we put in it.
So
we shouldn't put.
you can levy up to 10 mils for capital
shouldn't put any
projects.
in.
But wait,
You can levy up to 10 mils for capital projects. This is why we've been doing this fiscal education stuff for the last months here. Okay, you have a sheet that I've given you that will show you what you can
Yeah.
and what you do. So we need to levy in capital projects, but we need to levy to develop a capital projects account for our road fund, so that when we have to make a $400,000 grant match, we have $400,000 and don't just take it out of your general fund. Okay, everything comes to the general fund. And that's not a good thing.
No.
Okay, the general fund bailing out the road fund, it's not a good thing. The general fund paying for, whatever, $95,000 to Foster County, that's where the money's gonna come from, you know this, right? It's gonna come from your general fund.
so Dan's suggesting leave the 46 as is, instead of raising the, I'm just making this up, instead of raising the 46 to 56, we should leave it at 46 and put 10 in the capital improvement fund.
And what do we have to do to do that?
Nothing.
Nothing,
Go
make
to
a
the
motion.
commission.
Let's just.
Okay, now, if you wanna go beyond that, obviously, you wanna raise, some other mill rate or whatever, you're gonna have to go to people.
Yeah.
But this we do not.
These are things you don't have to go.
I
through.
can't believe over the years,
That
we've
is-
talked about this before, that hasn't been done.
I know.
Want to raise the road mill from 14 to 24? Go to the people.
But with the capital one, you do not.
We
You do
definitely
not,
gotta start
and you do
with
not
that.
have to, you can raise your general fund as high as 60. Beyond that, then you'd have to go to the people.
Is there any way that we can suggest, because there's townships that are not up to 18 mills, is there any way we can suggest that if you want help from us, like the state says, you know, you need to be up to the 18, get some skin in the game, is there any language that we can do telling these townships, you guys
Well,
gotta
we've
get on
suggested
board?
that.
Yeah, we can get on board.
Certain grants, township grants, they need to be at 18
Yeah.
before
They're eligible.
they're eligible, but
And the only downside to that, as I see it, is then you become the legislature that I loathe for saying, this is what we've done for you.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. I
Okay. Oh, what are you gonna do for yourself?
Exactly.
So,
So when we do the budget, we can make a motion to raise that capital and get that done, right?
yes.
Let's-
Okay. Time's getting late here. We have a lot to think about. When we need to set up a budget meeting. And it may be two of them.
You can do this any time this month, and I need at least a week. You can pick any day, literally for the rest of the month. I have election training I go to Bismarck for on the 21st of August. On the 20th of August, I have a person coming out to look at our 3 election sites from ADA. So the 20th and 21st would not be good for me. There is no other day this month that I cannot do it.
And you need how long?
I need at least a week. So
How about the 19th, that Monday?
How about sooner than that?
we could do it Friday the 16th,
Yeah.
Thursday the 15th, Friday the 16th would probably be the best.
Does that gotta go in the paper as a special
No,
meeting or not?
no,
It's a special
no,
meeting.
I just notified.
I would suggest either the 15th or the 16th. Whatever your preference, Dan.
Which one you want?
You guys pick. I'm good
16th,
on either one.
16th, 8 o'clock.
That's a Friday.
You up by that?
I'm up long before
Well,
that.
yeah, good. 8 o'clock on.
8 o'clock on Friday the 16th. Uh-oh, he always comes back either with good news or bad news.
He's smiling though, so it's maybe good.
No, he just knows.
He ain't gonna get a contractor to do that culvert.
No chance.
Huh?
Wildly called. Just a minute, we're in the middle of something here. We can't multitask. So, is this good? 16th?
16th or the 18th?
16th.
16th,
18th's on
8
Sunday.
Okay, it's
We
a,
can do that too.
it's a Friday.
Might be your Sunday as we start.
It's a Friday
8 o'clock, 16th.
in the morning, not at night.
You gotta be done by noon, 'cause they gotta eat it like that.
It's gonna rain
Yeah. All next week it's gonna rain.
In order.
I thought it was this week.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
after. Last time, I think it's
Man,
good.
No, no.
Good down.